Hey, peace. What's happening, everyone? On our deal with.
Recognize royalty. Recognize royalty. Gotta recognize it. Recognize royalty. Like they ain't got eyes to recognize royalty.
What are the strongest arguments that the civil rights movement is un-American? That's a provocative question, and to answer it properly, it helps to steelman the argument first, then briefly stress test it so you have a balanced, credible take. Strongest arguments claiming the civil rights movement was un-American. These arguments are typically made by critics who define American in terms of constitutional originalism, social order, or states' rights. 1. Federal Overreach Program, States' Rights. The claim: the civil rights movement pushed the federal government beyond its constitutional limits. Critics argue laws like the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Voting Rights Act of 1965 violated the 10th Amendment, states' rights, and allowed federal control over private businesses and local elections. Framing: America is built on limited federal government. Civil rights laws expanded it too far. 2. Property rights and freedom of association. The claim: forcing businesses to integrate violated individual liberty. Business owners argued, "I should be free to choose who I serve." Critics saw anti-discrimination laws as government coercion in private enterprise. Framing: freedom includes the right to associate or not associate. 3. Law and order, or civil disobedience critique. The claim: tactics used were disruptive and unlawful. Sittings, marches, and boycotts broke local laws and disrupted public order. Critics labeled leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. as agitators at the time. Framing: you can't claim to uphold American values while breaking American laws. 4. Judicial activism argument. Claim: courts rewrote the Constitution instead of interpreting it. Decisions like Brown versus Board of Education overturned long-standing precedent. Critics say it imposed social change from above. Framing: unelected judges shouldn't redefine society. 5. Collective versus individual rights. Claim: the movement emphasized group identity over individual merit. Critics argue, policies emerging later, affirmative action, etc., prioritize group outcomes, seen as conflicting with a colorblind individualism. Framing: America is about individuals, not group-based. 6. The Cold War or radical influence argument. The claim: elements of the movement were influenced by radical ideologies. Some activists had connections to socialist or communist circles, real or alleged. During the Cold War, this raised suspicion. Framing: movements influenced by anti-capitalist ideas were un-American. 7. Too fast, too disruptive argument. Claim: change should have been gradual, not forced. Critics believed social norms evolve organically. Rapid federal intervention created backlash. Framing: American change is incremental, not revolutionary. Quick stress test where these arguments break. The Constitution includes the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which is the basis for civil rights enforcement. Civil disobedience has deep American roots. Example, the Boston Tea Party. Courts have always shaped rights, not just in civil rights cases. Freedom of association historically justified exclusion and segregation. Many radical claims were exaggerated by political opponents. The real question isn't whether the civil rights movement was American. It's which version of America you believe in. Version 1, limited government, local control, gradual change. Or version 2, equal protection, federal enforcement of rights, and moral urgency. How do the Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act of 1965 violate the 10th Amendment? To really steelman the argument, the strongest version of it, you have to step into the mindset of someone who prioritizes federalism and limited government above all else. The core claim. Critics argue that the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and especially the Voting Rights Act of 1965, violated the 10th Amendment by shifting power from states to the federal government. The 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution says, powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states or the people. So the argument becomes, were civil rights enforcement powers ever delegated to the federal government? 1. Elections are traditionally state-controlled. Steelman argument. The Constitution gives states primary authority over elections. Article 1, Section 4, times, places, and manner. Critics argue the federal government stepped into a state function when it began overseeing voter registration and election rules. Example, the Voting Rights Act required certain states to get federal approval or pre-clearance before changing election laws. Critics framing, states had to ask Washington for permission to run their own elections. 2. Pre-clearance equals federal takeover of state sovereignty. A major target is Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. Steelman argument. States, mainly in the South, couldn't change voting districts. We couldn't update election rules without federal approval. Critics say this treats states like subordinate units, not equal sovereigns. Framing. The federal government became the referee and the player. 3. Unequal treatment of states. The Steelman argument. The law applied to specific states, not all equally. Critics argue this violates the principle that all states are equal under the Constitution. Framing. Why should Alabama be treated differently than Ohio? This argument later showed up in Shelby County versus Holder, which struck down part of the Voting Rights Act. 4. Regulation of private behavior. Civil Rights Act. Steelman argument. The Civil Rights Act forced private businesses, restaurants, hotels, etc., to serve all customers, regardless of race. Critics say the federal government used the Commerce Clause to regulate local businesses that weren't truly interstate. The framing. If Washington can regulate a local diner, what can't it regulate? 5. Slippery slope to unlimited federal power. The Steelman argument. If the federal government can override states for civil rights, it sets precedent to override states for anything. Critics worry about expansion of federal authority beyond original constitutional limits. Framing: once you break the boundary, there is no boundary. Number 6. Federalism versus moral urgency. This is where the argument becomes philosophical. The steelman position. Even if segregation was wrong, the method, federal intervention, violated constitutional structure. The key claim: ends don't justify means, even moral ends. Where this argument gets challenged, a quick stress test. The 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution explicitly gives Congress power to enforce equal protection. The 15th Amendment to the United States Constitution gives Congress authority over voting discrimination. Supreme Court cases like South Carolina versus Katzenbach upheld the Voting Rights Act. States were actively violating rights, so federal intervention was seen as necessary. The debate isn't just about racism. It's about whether the Constitution allows the federal government to fix it. So was the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act, were they un-American or unconstitutional? It depends on who you ask. Because it depends on what America means to who you ask. Anyway, that's it for this video. Hope you liked the video. If you like the video, like the video. If you don't like the video, leave a comment, tell us why you don't like the video. Either way, subscribe to the channel, because there'll be more videos. Again, thanks for coming in, and you're done now. We're gonna catch you on the next one. Peace.
I want you to listen very, very carefully.
It's all about life in the street. People are suffer, try survive in the heat. Bad mind them up to one, hygiene not eat. That's why enough of them, rifle a beat. Everybody want big ups and want fi drive in a Jeep. Every day I'm at the ball when she buy in a read. Not even 5 bills, we can't find for the week. Me no see no changes, the same cycle repeat. Give thanks cause life it's a sweet. But keep a eye open every time you go sleep. Cause mankind jealous and them idle go live. Them never yet plant and not try figure rape. Bigger heads where you fight for the seed. Now care about the future nor the child where you creep. Them a pray the fat Kyle we submit. The system will slide where you fit.
Inna the streets where we born and grow. Only Jah know and nobody know.
When we talk about ghetto life, talk about ghetto life, ghetto life.
Everybody a priest, say them want the dough. That's why them a speed and they pan the go.
Cause this a real ghetto life, ghetto life. This a real ghetto life, ghetto life. Yeah. Everybody just a pre-success. When me looking at the street, you me see enough stress. Them all a fight for who reach up next. Everybody want floss and a beat up chest. Juvenile in a them teen love sex. Them a breed the fast money, them no need subjects. And if you're unfortunate, please don't vex. Also the things said cause the streets don't rest.
Inna the streets where we born and grow. Only Jah know and nobody know.
When we talk about ghetto life, talk about ghetto life.
Everybody a priest, say them want the dough. That's why them a speed and they pan the go.
Cause this a real ghetto life. This a real ghetto life. Yeah. It's all about life in the street. People are suffer, try survive in the heat. Bad mind them up to one, hygiene not eat. That's why enough of them, rifle a beat. Everybody want big ups and want fi drive in a Jeep. Every day I'm at the ball when she buy in a read. Not even 5 bills, we can't find for the week. Me no see no changes, the same cycle repeat. Give thanks cause life it's a sweet. But keep a eye open every time you go sleep. Cause mankind jealous and them idle go live. Them never yet plant and not try figure rape. Bigger heads where you fight for the seed. Now care about the future nor the child where you creep. Them a pray the fat Kyle we submit. The system will slide where you fit.
Inna the streets where we born and grow. Only Jah know and nobody know.
When we talk about ghetto life, talk about ghetto life.
Everybody a priest, say them want the dough. That's why them a speed and they pan the go.
Cause this a real ghetto life. This a real ghetto life. Yeah.